Welcome into First Pitch for Thursday, June 15th. We got a 10-game slate on the docket for today with 3 day games. So wanted to get the show out early to you right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Starting off with our leadoff hitter, Bryan Leonard. Check him out, wagertalk.com. Bryan, what do you got for big game breakdown?
I want to take a look at this Colorado-Atlanta game for my big game breakdown. We know all about the Rockies. They're once again struggling on the road with a 12-21 record this season. Kyle Freeland gets the start for Colorado tonight. His ERA is 3.99, but all of his at-bats show he should have about a 4.80 ERA. He's been very impressive in Coors Field, 3.19 ERA, but when he's on the road, 4.81. One of the few pitchers that I've seen that pitches better at Coors than he does on the road. You normally don't see that, but we're going to take advantage of that here. Atlanta ranks second in Major League Baseball in WRC plus versus lefties, right behind Tampa Bay. We all know how well Tampa Bay has hit this year. So this is a very good hitting team against lefties in Atlanta. Young fireballer A.J. Smith-Shawver is going to start today. He's only given up, he hasn't given up a earned run so far this season in 7.2 innings. He came out of the bullpen for the first game, and then he started his next game. And while his advanced stats show he's been pretty lucky thus far, especially with a 55% fly ball rate, his batted ball quality across the board is elite. So his numbers have been very good. I've watched him pitch both times this year, and I've been very impressive with him. He does walk a little bit of batters. That's your only concern, but he's a major strikeout guy, and that's something you want to have when you're taking on a team like Colorado on the road, a team that doesn't have quite as much power as a lot of the other teams do. So we like that out of Smith-Shawver. The Braves have scored 73 runs combined in 12 June games this year. They should have a little problem getting to Freedom. And I'm going to play Atlanta minus the 1.5 here. Don't want to lay the big number, but I think they'll have a lot of success here against Freeland. And we're going to go with Atlanta minus 1.5. And that'll be our play on this big game breakdown.
Thanks for that, Bryan. Next up, our 2-hole hitter here, Adam Trigger. Check him out on Twitter at TopFlightSI and wagertalk.com. Trig, what do you got for big game breakdown for the Thursday slate?
All right, so for my big game breakdown, I'm going to look at one of what I would consider the marquee matchups on Thursday. It's the Angels and the Rangers, and if those two teams aren't marquee enough for you, it certainly becomes one of the top sort of viewing games on the board because, of course, Shohei Ohtani is on the mound for the Angels. And so I'll start by saying this, and this goes sort of going forward and not just for this game. I'm taking kind of a general position against the Rangers right now. I've talked about it a little bit on shows in the past week or two that I would really want to come in and start to play against the Rangers at some point because I don't think they can sort of keep up what they've done. And, so far in this series, it's kind of, I really go back this week. It's looked to be the case. They're looking at potentially dropping 3 or 4 to the Angels here. And I would not be at all surprised if that's what happens tonight. And I think if you're just looking for a numbers play on Thursday's board, getting plus 120 with Shohei Ohtani on the mound, you can't really go wrong there. Ohtani, he hasn't, let's cut him some slack, right? Like he goes out, he plays every day. He still has to pitch. There's a lot of guys that get fatigued come this time of year that are just pitchers that, kind of go through their normal rest and pitch every 5th day. Ohtani's out there, playing every day. And he's still taking the ball every 5th day. He leads the majors this year with a 172 batting average against. He's currently 3rd in the league in strikeouts with 102. You look at he hasn't been sharp the last few times out. You look at his last start, one of his worst from a command perspective, season high 5 walks. And it doesn't surprise me that he's had some struggles in recent weeks because we're in, mid-June. He's probably just getting tired and fatigued, but I'm willing to bet on him bringing his A game here. I think he's going to give a big effort. What I think is going to happen, I'm guessing that he knows he's going to get some rest in the Royals series that's coming up this weekend. So, the Angels after this game, they're going to head up to Kansas City. My guess is he's been told he's going to get at least a day off over the weekend. And I think, they got to Ohtani big time last year, this Rangers team. So I think he's going to take that personally, and I think he's going to bring, his best stuff, especially after such a poor, sort of outing last time. On the other side, like, listen, Nathan Eovaldi, I'll tip my cap. I'll be the first one to say that I didn't see this coming. His last 10 starts, 8-0 with a 1.65 ERA. His season-long numbers, 9-2 with a 2.49 ERA and a 0.98 WHIP. I didn't see that coming, and I haven't really bet against him, but I'm going to look for spots to oppose him now, because even like the last couple of years where he's been pretty good, I still think he's a guy that's probably going to flirt with a 4 ERA. Like even a really good season, in my opinion, for Eovaldi is still somewhere in the high 3s from an ERA perspective, and his WHIP will undoubtedly increase from 0.98, which is just ridiculously low. So he's someone that I'm going to probably jump in and start to oppose. And here, he's got 13 scoreless innings against the Angels. So I just think as a team, this Angels team, I think they're starting to look at the Rangers as a rival. The series has been very competitive so far this year. They've split the 6 games they've played to this point. I think the Angels are going to look at this as a potential to go into Texas and win a series is a really big deal for them. You've got Shohei on the mound. Can't ask for a better setup there. And the fact that you're going to get plus money for that in a game that I think would be a coin flip at best, I still sort of tilt this to the Angels, I think is great value. So Angels plus 120, really any plus money here, I think is a good bet from a numbers perspective.
Good stuff from Adam Trigger. Next up here, Tokyo Brandon. Brandon, what do you got for big game breakdown?
Thanks, Drew. For my big game breakdown, I would like to go to Baltimore, where the Blue Jays are taking on the Orioles. We've got Yusei Kikuchi. I've known him since he was in high school. Well, not known him personally, but I actually scouted him when I was a major league scout. So I know what he's about. I know how he pitches, and I know how he's been performing. Surprisingly, he's got a 6-2 record. But that's mostly because the bats are on fire when he's pitching, not because he's pitching well. On the other hand, we got Tyler Wells for the Orioles, who's actually been pitching quite well in his last few games. But he has given up 2 runs or more in 4 of his last 5 starts. So these are 2 of the best hitting teams. And how good are they hitting? If you look at their last 10 days, the collective team WOBAs, both of them are over 330, which is really high. They both rank high, and I think Yusei Kikuchi is going to get hammered in this one, and I also think Tyler Wells is going to give up quite a few. Last look, the total was 9 on this, so I would advise people going on the over 9 here. 2 really good lineups, 2 really bad pitchers, and speaking of the bullpens, both bullpens' collective FIPS over the last 10 days are over 3.5. So not really good bullpens, really good lineups, and one very shaky starter leads me to think that this big game breakdown should be the Orioles and the Blue Jays over 9. Back to you.
Heading back to the top of the order here, guys, to our leadoff hitter, Bryan Leonard. Check him out, wagertalk.com, at @BLeonardSports on Twitter. Bryan, what do you got for your best bet for the Thursday slate?
We're going to take a look at 2 of the teams looking to make the playoffs in the National League. Today, we're going to go with Aaron Nola against Ryan Nelson for Arizona. Aaron Nola has had a terrible time this year with the pitch clock this season. He normally works very slow anyway, and he's had a hard time adjusting to it. And so he's been talking about he's sacrificing some velocity in order not to wear himself out. But he says now he realizes that is the cause of his problems, that he's not throwing hard enough. So he's going to try to change that today in his starts going forward. I don't see that as much of a positive for Philadelphia and Aaron Nola. If you're wearing yourself out where you got to pitch slow, why are you using more energy in order to get that pitch count down there and not give up any free balls? They just got to be able to pitch better. And Nola had really good numbers the last few years when you take a look at his advanced stats. It didn't show up as much in his regular stats, but maybe he's a guy that just underperforms. And we've seen that from a lot of people in Major League Baseball. So maybe Nola's that way. He's got a 4.6 ERA, but his advanced stats have been even better, a little better than that. So we're looking at something probably about a 4.25 ERA, which is good for some teams, average for others. And when you're Aaron Nola and you've got a big name like that and people are betting into it, you would want better numbers than that. So we're looking to fade him here. He has a poor 13.6% fly ball percentage. So his road ERA is 5.14, gives up a lot of home runs. We've seen this Arizona team hit a lot of home runs at home. It's been a launching pad for a lot of this season for both home and away. So I think they'll be able to get to Nola. He gives up too many home runs for trust him in a good hitter's park here. Ryan Nelson faced this team earlier in Philly. He allowed just a single earned run in 6 innings. The Diamondbacks yesterday rested both Marte and Carroll. Marte because of an injury, and they did come in late in the game, I believe, as a pitch runner, and Carroll pitch hit. So those two guys are off. The two other guys that play just about every game, they were off yesterday. So other than the pitching duties, so I look for them to play today, and I expect this Arizona offense to have a lot of success against a struggling Aaron Nola. And Arizona is a team that's on the rise. Philadelphia's still in neutral. Give me Arizona as a home underdog here.
Next up here, our 2-hole hitter, Adam Trigger, number 1 at Wager Talk over the last 365 days. That's where you can check out his premium plays. Trig, what do you got for best bets on the Thursday card?
All right, my best bet for the show is going to be the Washington Nationals on the run line, plus 1.5. For no reason other than I think they're really going to come to play today for their manager, who went absolutely nuts last night after they, sort of got kind of screwed on the whole baseline thing again, reminiscent of the time, when these two teams played in the World Series. If you didn't see the game, end of the game, it was a home to first double play. The ball sort of was thrown into the runner, hit the runner, allowed what ended up being the winning run to score, and the Astros won in walk-off fashion 5-4. Dave Martinez went absolutely nuts after the game, and I think that might get his team fired up here to come out and try to steal one in this series. So I looked at the Nats in this series, coming into the series, as, they can steal one in Houston here. Of course, Yordan Alvarez just went on the IL earlier this week. The Astros they've kind of been scoring, but I'm a little concerned with that going forward, especially because the guys that have replaced him are essentially AAA guys sort of getting a chance. I think that, and of course, Yordan Alvarez, one of the more productive players in Major League Baseball. So I do think they're going to feel that at some point. And my guy, Mackenzie Gore, who a guy I've backed a couple times this year, earlier this season with success. The last couple times, not so much. The Nationals have lost 8 straight times this guy has pitched, but he's a good pitcher. His overall numbers are good. His underlying metrics imply he should be better. 4.04 ERA, 1.39 WHIP. He had a 7-inning outing a couple starts ago where he struck out 11 guys. Certainly not a guy that should have 8 straight, losses. Obviously, he hasn't taken the decision in all 8 of those games, but his team has lost 8 in a row. And one more thing about the Nationals, I feel like the Nats get grouped in with the Royals and the A's as one of these really bad teams. And I just don't think that's the case. I have the Nationals, I don't think they're the worst of the worst in the league this year. They have had a rough couple weeks. You go back to the beginning of May, they were 5 games under 500. But I still think they profile as a team that will trend toward the 500 mark the rest of the way. They're probably not going to get back there, but they could have a chance to play 500 baseball the rest of the way. And of course, you've got the road team on the run line, plus 1.5. You get the extra at that. And I will play against Christian Javier at times, especially after he has a bad start. So this is a guy that's been super streaky. If you go back to last year, he was sort of cold at the end of the year in the postseason, brought that into this season, got insanely hot for, over a month. His overall numbers are fantastic, 7-1. His WHIP is around 1. But he just had his worst start of the season last time out against the Guardians. And I'm willing to think that there might be some carryover here. and maybe you don't get his absolute best effort. So I think the combination of the fact that you get the Nats with at a pretty cheap run line price on the road where you get the extra at bat, Mackenzie Gore, I'm willing to buy low. I think he's got some wins in his future. I think that plus 1.5 is value. So Nationals plus 1.5. Think it's minus 120, minus 125. As we record this, is my best bet for the show.
All right, guys, we're heading to the other side of the world here with Tokyo Brandon. Brandon, what do you got for best bets on today's card?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, for my best bet, I am going to the Nationals and the Astros. As we all know, the Astros do have some big bats. The Nationals actually have some pretty good bats too, but that's not the way I'm going for my best bet today. If you look at the Nationals, Mackenzie Gore, he's one of those guys who is shaky. How shaky is he? He's got an ERA of 4.04, and his WHIP is over 1.3, which in the major leagues generally means you're going to get hammered pretty good. The Astros on the season are averaging 4.53 runs per game, and against the Washington bullpen over the last 10 days, the Washington bullpen has a collective FIP of 5.65, which is the third worst in Major League Baseball. I've been making a lot of money going on Houston Astros team total overs, and that's what I'm going back to today. I think the Houston Astros will have no problem scoring 5 in this one. The total is actually not out yet on the book at the time of recording this, but generally it's been 4.5. I would even take a 5.5, but since they're at home, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 4.5 when it comes out. I'm all over the over on the team total for the Houston Astros for my best bet. Back to you guys.
Great stuff from the crew here with best bets. I'll finish it up here with my best bet for the Thursday card. It's the LA Angels and the Texas Rangers. 8 o'clock Eastern, first pitch here. Ohtani versus Eovaldi, which is a huge pitching matchup. Really a big game overall, guys, here in the American League. We're seeing Texas in the overnights, minus 120 favorites. That's the low water mark right now. Risk 120 to win 100. Guys, it's the third best team in baseball by record. Hey, you are what your record says you are. So like betting teams with good records, we're doing that here with the Rangers up against Ohtani. Look, probably the best player in baseball. I mean, if we're having a draft and it's who are you picking first for your baseball team in MLB, I'd pick Ohtani. But I really bring in kind of how you've pitched recently. That's what I like to bet on. And Ohtani, if you go back to the end of April, his ERA is flirting with 5. His FIP up over 7, his xFIP over 6. So the underlying metrics not very good for him of late. And he had 5 walks last time out. So he's having a little bit of trouble finding the strike zone here. So I actually think this minus 120 price tag with this Rangers lineup and Eovaldi, who's won 8 straight decisions, guys, and he's gone 8 or more innings 4 times in this stretch. So he's been hot. Betting on Eovaldi and betting on the Texas Rangers here, minus 120 in the overnights. That's my best bet for the show here, guys. First pitch for Thursday in the books. We'll be back on Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern time. Come back and join us right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Drew Martin signing out. Cash those tickets.